All right, so let's go ahead and come to our seated position. Just take a moment and check in with your body. So I want you to find your straight spine, settle in, close your eyes, soften your jaw, take a deep breath in, and just exhale fully, beginning to turn inward so that you can be mindful of everything that you're feeling right now. Let's start breathing a slow, deep Ujjayi breath. And then check in with thoughts, emotions, energy, connection, all of those things. And bring palms together in front of the heart. Set your intention for your practice this morning. Be very clear about what you personally need. And when you are clear on that, take a deep breath in. One last exhale through the mouth. And we're gonna start standing today. So I want you to come to the front of the mat in Tadasana. Pardon me, mountain pose. And just take a moment getting rooted, grounded, aligned, tuned in. Bring your palms together in front of your heart. Take a deep breath in, reach the arms up and overhead. As you exhale, bend your knees and fold forward into ragdoll, totally relaxing the neck and just dangling. Allowing the weight of the head to lengthen the spine a little bit. And then on your next inhale, we're going to come all the way back up. Reach the arms up and overhead. As you exhale, palms together in front of your heart. Inhale, reach the arms up. As you exhale, fold forward, standing forward bend. Try and get fingertips to the floor if you can. And then look up halfway and lengthen. And then back down. So we're going to step back with the right foot. So we've got a nice left foot forward lunge. I want you to just hold your lunge for a couple of breaths. Our emphasis today is to open up the front of the hips. So we're working with hip flexors. So the first thing I want you to do here, once you get kind of settled into your lunge, is slightly tilt your pelvis back. Think of that as tucking your tailbone under, and then allow the hips to drop a little bit. See if you can go ahead and begin to start feeling something on the front of your right hip. And then let's go ahead and drop the right knee down. We're going to bring the arms up and overhead. Same backward tilt of the pelvis, and then we let the hips move forward. And we're just going to be taking our time today. So these muscles, this whole area, connective tissue muscles, has a tendency to get tight in most of us modern humans. It's a very worthwhile thing to keep it opened up. But you have to be really mindful about kind of these fine-tuning aspects of opening it. So really paying attention to tightening your right buttock, the muscles at the base of the buttock, keeping the chest lifted and allowing the hips to move forward. So the longer you're here, the more it releases. And so you might need to shift forward a little more. I want you to just stay really present in your body, breath by breath. And then bring your hands down on either side of the left foot. Let's go ahead and extend the left leg, say hello to our left hamstring this morning and give that right hip flexor a break for a moment. And then I want you to bend your left knee, scoot your left foot farther forward than it is now. We're going to keep the right knee down for this first lizard pose. So you're going to bring your left hand inside that left foot. And I want you to come onto your right forearm. And the reason we scooted the left foot forward is we want to get into the front of the right hip, not only the left hamstring. If you need to use your block to put your forearm or forearms on, that's fine. But once you find your lizard pose, see if you can tilt the pelvis back slightly. Now, if your hamstrings are particularly tight, you're going to feel the left hamstring more, and that's okay. But see if you can access a little bit of opening on the front of that right hip. Let's take one more breath here. And then go ahead and step back to a plank position and just hold plank for a moment. First time down, let's modify dropping knees, chest, and chin. And then untuck the toes, and we'll come into Sphinx so that we can lengthen the spine. Pardon me, anytime that we're working with the spine, we want as much length as possible, and then that will translate into helping us open the hips. And it's not only the back side of the hips, it's the front side of the hips too. So shoulders are down the back, your glutes are relaxed, you're pulling your heart forward. And then take your first downward facing dog and feel free to do any little movements initially that you need to kind of wake your body up. You might like to pedal the feet or rotate at the shoulders a little bit. And then go ahead and find some stillness here. And then we're going to take a step forward with the right foot. And again, just like we did on the first side, I want you to, let your body settle into your lunge here. And then once you kind of get to your comfort zone, we're going to work with it a little bit because we're trying to get into the front of the left hip. So we slightly tilt the pelvis back. It's like tucking the tailbone under, and let the hips drop a little more. Just seeing if we can begin to access that left hip flexor. And then go ahead and drop your left knee down. We'll come up with the arms up and overhead. Tilt the pelvis back. So again, you want to kind of tighten your left glute. Keep your rib cage lifted and let the hips move forward. And we just go breath by breath, keeping that posterior tilt of the pelvis, tailbone kind of tucked under. Hips moving forward as necessary to maintain that sensation of opening on the front of the left hip. Hands on either side of the right foot. Let's go ahead and fully extend the right leg. Flex the ankle and toes if you can. And then we're going to bend the right knee, and I want you to scoot your right foot farther forward than you have it. Bring the right hand inside the right foot. So we're coming into lizard, keeping left knee down for now. Coming onto the left forearm, maybe the right, you can use your blocks. But the idea here is to try and get into the front of the left hip a little bit, in addition to the right hamstring. So maybe try and tighten the muscles at the base of your left buttock. Come back up onto your hands and we'll step forward to our standing forward bend. And just hold that for a moment. It's a nice counter pose to all the front hip opening. And then inhale, reach your arms all the way up and overhead. And as you exhale, palms together in front of the heart. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, look up and lengthen. Exhale, back down. This time stepping back with the left foot. Find your lunge. See if you can tilt the pelvis back slightly, maybe sink the hips a little more. So we're just trying to ease into more and more sensation on the front of the hips, in this case, left hip. So now we're going to drop left knee down. Go ahead and scoot your right foot forward again. And then I want you to come up with your hands on top of your right thigh. Tilt the pelvis back and let your hips move forward again. So it should be a little more intense because I made you go with a longer step. If you feel like you can, arms are up and overhead, pelvis tilts, hips move forward. Hands are going to come back down again. Keep this longer stance. Turn your left toes under and take the left leg off the ground. Right hand to the inside of the right foot. See if you can come on to your left forearm or a block, or maybe both. Try and tighten the muscles at the base of your left buttock. Come on up onto the hands. Begin to straighten your right leg. Lengthen your torso forward. And then if you need to scoot your right foot back towards you just a hair, that's fine, because I made you scoot it forward. If you're able to, we're going to go ahead and come up into a high lunge now. So arms are up and overhead. The pelvis tilts back and the hips drop down. Keep your heart lifted. See if you can find that sensation on the front of your left hip. Hands to the mat, step back to plank. Take the vinyasa of your choice. Begin finding as much spinal length in your downward facing dog as possible. Then take a big step forward with your left foot. Just like we did before, tilt your pelvis back. See if you can feel the front of your right hip in this lower lunge. Things should be waking up for you. Let's go ahead and drop the right knee down and scoot your left foot forward. This is very helpful, so don't back up yet. Go ahead and bring your hands to the top of your left thigh. Tilt your pelvis back, make sure your chest is lifted, and let the hips move forward. So what this does is it just increases a little bit that range of motion on that right front hip. Once you get that, if you can, arms are up and overhead. Be mindful of keeping the muscle at the base of your right buttock nice and contracted. Bring the hands down, Turn the right toes under and lift your right knee off the ground. Bring your left hand inside that left foot. So we still have that long stance. See if you can come onto the right forearm or a block, maybe the left. Try and keep pelvis tilted back. Hands on either side of the left foot. Begin to extend your left leg. And then if you need to, scoot your left foot back a little bit, since I did make you take that extra long step. And then if you can, go ahead and come on up into a high lunge with your arms up and overhead and your pelvis tilted and your hips sinking. Hands down. Step forward to a standing forward bend. Hold it for a moment. It's a nice counter pose. And then inhale, reach the arms all the way up and overhead. Exhale, palms together in front of the heart. Inhale, reach your arms up. And exhale, fold forward. Inhale, look up halfway. And exhale, back down. We're going to step back with the right leg. And so just taking a moment to pause in your lunge here, how are things going? I don't know about you, but I'm starting to have a lot more sensation in the front of my hips. And so that's what we're going for. We're trying to increase blood flow, oxygen, prana, all of that stuff. So from here, grab your folded up towel or blanket or your foam block and put it down so that it's underneath your right knee. So your right knee is elevated but cushioned. Scoot your left foot forward again, like we did earlier, okay? And then go ahead and come up with your hands on top of your left thigh. Tilt your pelvis back and start letting the hips sink. So you should be really starting to feel something on the front of your right hip. If you can, pick your right foot up off the ground. If you can, grab the foot or ankle with your right hand and keep moving the hips forward. This should be pretty intense, so make sure you're breathing. Release that leg. Toes come back to the mat. Pick the right knee up. Hold your lunge for one more breath. And then step it back to plank. You can kind of move your block. Lower down on your exhale. Upward facing dog or cobra on your inhale. Downward facing dog on your exhale. And then step forward with your right foot. Hold your lunge for a moment. So just like we've been doing, we want to check in. We're not rushing through anything. We're really trying to be attentive to what we're feeling on the front of the hips. Go ahead and grab your block or towel or blanket and put it underneath the left knee. Scoot your right foot forward. You know how important that is. And then come on up with your hands on top of your right thigh. Tilt your pelvis back. Let the hips move forward. Just take a breath. This is more intense so far than anything you've done. If you can, and all of this is optional, you guys, if you can, you pick your left foot up off the floor and you reach back with your left hand for your left foot or ankle. And then release. Step back to plank again. Move your block out of the way. On your exhale, lower down. On your inhale, upward facing dog. And on your exhale, downward facing dog. Push the hips up and back. So from here, I'm going to have you drop down to your knees. And we're going to come up to kneeling. If you're using a block, this will all depend upon your knee health as well as hip flexors in front of the quads. So if you're not using a block, you might want to really roll your towel or blanket up super fat, because what we're going to do is reclined hero's pose, but we're going to support the hips so that it's not too stressful on the knees. So I'm going to show you with my block. You can go high level, mid-level, or low level, and some of you may be able to go 0 block. I'm going to honor my knees and go mid-level. So what I'm going to do is put my block behind me, kind of between my feet, and see if it feels okay to sit back on my block. So for me, with my knee stuff going on, this is about it. You might be able to sit down on your heels, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to lean back and then tilt the pelvis back. So I want you to tuck your tailbone under and lift your chest. So once you tilt the pelvis back, the front of the hips can open. Take a couple of breaths. And then come on up from that and just go straight into downward facing dog. Walk or jump your feet forward to a standing forward bend. And then inhale, reach the arms all the way up and overhead, stretch up. And as you exhale, palms together in front of your heart. So our balance is going to be dancer pose, very specifically for opening up the front of the hips. So I'm actually going to ask you to not lean. Oh my gosh, I know, that's crazy, right? So instead of leaning and pulling on the leg, what we're going to do is stay upright and really work the front of the hip. So I'm going to stand on my right foot first. I'm going to reach back and grab my left foot with my left hand. You can go open palm for shoulder opening, or if you need to do closed palm, that's fine. But once you get your left foot, right arm is up if you like, or you can hang on to something. We're going to focus on the hip. We're going to do a very strong backward tilt of the pelvis, and then pull the left leg back while tightening the muscles at the base of the left glute until we feel it on the front of the left hip. And then release. Stand on your left foot, grab the right. Left arm extends. Pelvis very strongly tilts. Please stay upright. You get to lean in just a moment. And then pull the leg back. Really tighten muscles at the base of your right buttock so that you feel the front of your right hip. And then release. Roll your shoulders back. So now that your body and your mind are connected and cued in right here at the front of the hips, now we'll do dancer again, and you can do it the full on, you can lean into it, you can do whatever you like, but really, really stay connected to opening up the front of the hip. So standing on your right foot again, grab your left foot. Right arm overhead, pelvis tilts, that leg pulls back, access the hip opening, and then if you want to lean into it, go for it. But keep your pelvis tilted back so the front left hip is opening. And then come back up and we'll just switch sides, standing on your left foot, reaching back to the right. Remember, your pelvis is strongly tilted. The leg pulls behind you. You find sensation on the front of the right hip, and you maintain it as you progress into your pose. And we come back up and release, feet together, palms together. Inhale, reach your arms up. As you exhale, fold forward. Hold your forward bend for a moment. And then inhale, look up and lengthen. Exhale, back down. You can either walk or jump back to plank, flow through a vinyasa. And then again, we're going to drop down to the knees. We're going to work with our camel pose, but we're going to work with it with the hands on the hips the whole time. So you're not going to be reaching for your feet. So what I want you to do is put your hands on your hips and tilt the pelvis back again. And then really push the hips forward and start lifting your chest. Continue to really tighten at the base of your bum, keeping pubic bone pushing forward, chest lifting and rolling back. And you keep pushing the hips forward until you begin to feel the front of the hips. It's all about the pelvic tilts and the hips moving forward. You're trying to lengthen the front side of your hips. One more breath. And then come on up from that. Take your backside to your heels, forehead down, coming into child's pose. Just take a couple of breaths, letting your back round. And then from here, go straight into downward facing dog. Tailbone up and back, stretching. So moving into downward facing scorpion, that right leg goes up in the air. We bend the right knee, and we roll the right hip bone towards the ceiling. And I want you to imagine that your right foot has gotten really heavy, and then tilt the pelvis back. You should be able to feel the front of your right hip here. And then swing your right leg underneath you for pigeon. We're going to slide the left leg back. Be mindful of knee issues. Come onto your forearms for just a couple of breaths. And then what we're really here to do is open up the front of the left hip. So come back up onto your hands. And we're going to keep the left hand in the center of the mat. Reach the right hand back. Sorry, I'm just adjusting for my knee here today. Reach the right hand back for the left foot or ankle. Tilting the pelvis back. Tighten the muscles at the base of your left buttock. Look over your right shoulder and pull your left foot towards your right glute. Do whatever you got to do to feel sensation on the front of your left hip. 2 more breaths. Release out, go straight back to downward facing dog and stretch. Shift into plank, take your full vinyasa. And then we go into our downward facing scorpion on the left. So your left leg is going to go up in the air. You're going to bend the knee. Let your left foot start to drop behind you, feeling heavy. Tilt your pelvis back and keep rolling open until you feel the front of your left hip. Swing your left leg underneath you, coming into your pigeon. Just nestling down under the forearms for a couple of breaths. And then we come up onto the hands because what we really came here to do is open the front of the right hip. So right hand goes in the center of the mat. The left hand is going to reach behind you for your right foot or ankle. Pelvis tilts back. And then you start to pull that right foot towards your left glute. Couple more breaths. We release the right foot, step straight back, downward facing dog. And then shift into plank and flow through your vinyasa. Really, really, really reach those hips up and back, press the heels down. Then you can walk your feet forward and have a seat in Dandasana. Legs extend, legs are active, spine is straight. We're just kind of taking a moment to check in. We should feel a lot of blood flow, maybe even an increase in warmth in the hip region. So quick counter pose. Just inhale and reach your arms up, and as you exhale, lean out over both legs, Paschimottanasana. So this time, just to kind of counter pose it, tilt your pelvis forward, like you're trying to get your hip bones to touch the top of your thighs. Good. Come on up from that. And what I'd like you to do is just lean back on your hands a little bit, bend your knees, feet flat, and take the feet wide. So we're just going to kind of play with some positioning here for a moment. As you exhale, just let both knees drop over to the right. See if you can get your left knee to the floor. Your left bun may lift. That's fine. Bring the legs back up, drop them over to the left. See if you can get your right knee to the floor, even if your right bun lifts. And then come back up, drop your knees to the right again, and look down. If your left knee is kind of over by your right foot and your left hip looks more closed, I want you to slide your left leg back so that you at least have a straight line, if not more, so that you can start to feel a little bit of opening on the front of the hips. You might need a wider stance, is what I'm trying to say. Bring your legs back up, drop them over to the left. So again, you want to look and your knees should be straight out from your hips so that you have the potential to get some hip opening. All right, so now it gets a little more exciting. Bring your hands a little closer up underneath you. I want you to slowly drop both knees to the right. You can push through the left hand. You're going to, on purpose, lift your left bun off the ground and really tighten it to try and get into the front of that left hip. You should start to have a curve. And then drop the left bun back down. Right knee drops in as both legs go to the left. Strongly tilt the pelvis and lift your right bun. And then come back to the center. So just a little exercise for you to see how hip mobility and strength is going. Take your hands off the floor. Drop both knees to the right. See if you can tuck your tailbone, get that opening on the front of the left hip. Drop both knees over to the left. See if you can tuck your tailbone and get that hip opening on the right. And then bring the legs back down. Good. From here, take your legs wide. Feet are active, toes are going to point straight up, lift your chest. Hands can be behind you, in front of you, legs, feet, wherever you want them. But your spine is going to lengthen as you begin to fold forward. And then go ahead and come on up from that. Bring your legs together. Give them a good wiggle. Things are about to get a whole lot gentler and nicer now. But before we roll onto our backs, we're going to do one more hip opener that looks like dancer, but you're doing it lying on your side. So you don't have to worry about falling. So you're just going to recline onto your right side. You can either be up on your right forearm or you can be on the right tricep. You choose what feels best for you. You're going to want your knees bent. Once you get your knees bent, your bottom leg, your right leg needs to go behind you a little more. It's bent, but it's behind you. You're going to grab your left foot or ankle with your left hand and then bring the thighs parallel again. So if your knee wants to wing up, bring it back down. Tilt your pelvis back and pull your left leg behind you strongly, tightening muscles at your base of your left glute till you feel this on the front of your left hip. Release out of that. And then we'll just go to the left side. Let's roll over onto your left side. Again, you can be propped up on the forearm or you can be on your left tricep. Knees bend, but you want your left leg kind of behind you so it'll support you. Right hand reaches to grab right foot or ankle and we get the thighs parallel. We tilt the pelvis back and we pull the right leg behind us. Keeping that pelvis strongly tilted so that we can feel the front of the right hip. And then as you come out of that, you can go ahead and roll onto your back, hug your knees into your chest, side to side rock. Make sure that your block is within reach because now we're going to do some really yummy passive restorative hip openers. Yay! So if you're using a folded up blanket or towel, make sure it's about 4 to 6 inches thick. If you're using a block, you're going to have it at the flattest level. I want you to bring it up underneath your sacrum. So the back side of your hips, not your low back. Just rest your hips on it for a moment. And then what we're going to do is bring the left knee into the chest, extend the right leg all the way out onto the ground, and then totally relax your right leg. So the knee might bend, your right foot should be on the floor, it might be flopped open, that's fine. Pull your left knee towards you. You're going to feel your pelvis tilt, right? So you might need to readjust where your block is. But the idea is, if your right leg is totally relaxed and you're pulling your left knee into your chest, this is going to be pretty subtle compared to everything you've done so far. Just hang out and breathe for a little bit. You're going to start to feel front of the right hip really opening. So you've done very active hip openers. This is very passive. Just breathe and keep your right leg relaxed. One more deep breath in and out on this side. And then we're just going to bend the right knee so the right foot is flat. Put the left foot down beside the right foot. Bring your right knee into your chest and then extend your left leg all the way out and then totally relax the left leg. Heel hits the floor, left knee might be bent, that's fine. We pull the right knee in towards us, allowing the pelvis to tilt, keeping the left leg really relaxed. And just beginning to breathe so that this very passive psoas opener can work its magic. Couple more breaths on this side. And then just go ahead and have both feet flat on the mat for a moment. Rest for a second. You're at the lowest level on your block. You might want to stay here. If you do have a block, you might want to bump it up a level or two, because now we're going to do a supported bridge. So if you're not using a block, if you have a towel or a blanket, see if you can make it thicker or get two, or you could always do just a traditional bridge, which requires a little more effort. So big toes are going to touch, heels are going to separate. You're either going to stay at the lowest level of your block or transition to a mid-level, or possibly high, but probably mid. And I want you to just focus on the front part of the hips. So you should be able to relax here and let the hip flexors stretch, but you might need to do a little backward tilt of the pelvis to get into it. So you have a couple of options. You can stay at mid-level. It depends on your height and your hip flexor mobility. You are welcome to go to the highest level of your block if that's better for you, or you can stay at the lower mid-level and just tilt the pelvis back. And then again, you just breathe. Couple more breaths here. And then we're just gonna lift the bum a little bit. If you are on a mid-level, put your block back at the lowest level. If you're on a blanket or a towel, you're perfect. And now, if you need to readjust your block, now you get to just float the legs up. So if you're on a block, you want it positioned in such a way that it forces your pelvis to tilt back just a little bit so that your legs are effortlessly in the air. If you feel like you're holding your legs up, you're probably going to need to scoot your block or your blanket closer to your tailbone. Now, if you don't have enough lift on a block or a blanket, or if you'd rather do the full pose and you have a wall at your disposal, then you can literally do legs up the wall. We're going to be here for another 6 slow, deep breaths. So just breathing. And to slowly bend your knees. Bring your feet all the way down to the mat. Remove your block or blanket or towel from underneath your hips. Set it off to the side. You're done with it. Hug your knees into your chest. Rock side to side. And then we're going to take a moment in dead bug. So separate the knees. Reach your arms between the knees to grab the arches of the feet. So your arms are inside your legs. We try and get lower legs vertical and pull straight down. It's kind of a counter pose to everything you've been doing already. And then bring your feet to the mat. Let the knees drop open with the soles of the feet together. Just take a few breaths here, relaxing in a completely passive, reclined, bound angle. And then on your next inhale, final backward tilt of the pelvis, pressing the low back into the mat, lengthening the spine. The next time you breathe out, release, let the curve come back into the spine. One more time, inhale, flatten your back, hold it. The next time you breathe out, release. Extend your legs. Separate your feet. I highly recommend today for sure that you roll your legs in and out. So from your thigh and hip joint, you're just internally and externally rotating, and then just allow the legs to flop. They'll either flop open or flop closed. Whatever is natural for you is perfect. Lengthen your spine, broaden the shoulders, relax the shoulders so they're away from the ears. Bring your hands below your heart, palms facing up. Lengthen your neck, close your eyes, soften your jaw, soften your face. Take a deep breath in. Exhale through your mouth. And then soften the breath by allowing it to do what it wants to do naturally. So as you feel your body totally relaxing and your breath softening, bring your awareness back to the front of your hips. Notice that they may have an increase in sensation, or if you're chronically tight, you may have an absence of sensation, which is actually kind of nice, letting you know that things have opened or released. Kind of notice which of those is true for you, more sensation or less. They're both positive, by the way. So our hip flexor practice has a lot to do with our second energy center, the second chakra, Svadhisthana chakra. This also is where our bladder is, and it corresponds to the water element. And we've just entered the year of the water tiger based on the lunar new year. We've just had a new moon, which controls water, tides, gravitational pull. And we're supposed to have some moisture today, so more water. So we're going to roll with the idea that today is a very fluid day. We're going to get in touch with our own fluid nature and use that fluid nature to simply enter the flow of life. Not fighting against it, not resisting it, just surrendering into the flow. So I want you to actually feel your bladder right now. If you get up early enough, to have coffee or tea before practice. You might truly be feeling your bladder right now. It might be asking you to relieve it. So just notice that. Recognize that we use our bladder, this fluid part of us, to release what we no longer need. So water washes and cleanses in more ways than one. And then feel how your whole body is actually fluid. We think of ourselves as these solid creatures, and yet most places on your body, if you press with a finger, it will give. You're fluid filled, you're pliable, you're flexible. Feel how each cell in your body is a fluid filled sac, and that you are a collection of those, a much larger fluid filled sac. Your blood flows, your lymph flows. It's like internal rivers. There's motion, there's flow. So as we relax in Shavasana, we surrender to the flow of our blood and our lymph. And energetically, we surrender into the flow of life. Think of your life as a river. And I want you to imagine that you are on your back, floating down that river. When minor obstacles appear, you simply float around them. So in this way, we can surrender to the flow. Notice what it feels like to just give yourself over to the flow. How nice not to have to fight or resist anything, but to just float along. How incredibly relaxing, not only physically, but emotionally relaxing, spiritually relaxing, to just surrender. The second chakra, aside from being water element, is also our creativity. And when we surrender into the flow of life, we get back in touch with our own creative nature. Begin to feel that and begin to feel the rest of your body. Breathing in and out a little deeper, moving fingers and toes a little bit. When you are ready, take a deeper breath in and spread your fingers and toes, and then exhale with a nice sigh as you relax them again. And inhale and breathe even deeper and stretch. And exhale and relax and bend your knees. Roll to your right side and press yourself up into sitting. And as you come to your seated posture, find your straight spine. I want you to just interlace your fingers Just interlace your fingers and let that rest right in front of your bladder. So your arms basically should be relaxed, elbows by sides. And if your hands are just resting in your lap, then you're literally in front of your second chakra and your bladder. Traditional, really old school Ujjayi breath comes from here. Not a lot of movement in the chest and the diaphragm. We breathe in and out from the second chakra. That may sound odd to you. I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to do a nice, slow, deep Ujjayi breath. And I want you to let it originate from your second chakra, from the bladder. Lower abdomen distends and contracts. It takes some practice, but you can actually begin to feel this. So instead of your Ujjayi breath being up in your chest, it's down in the lower abdomen. Second chakra, Svadhisthana chakra. And then just let your breathing return to normal. Unlace your fingers, let your hands rest palms up on your knees or thighs. We're just going to sit for about a minute, noticing the effects, just being present and being aware, being in our witness and observer mode, just noticing, not controlling or participating in anything other than observing. How does your body feel as a result of your practice? How's the breath moving? What are the speed and quality of your thoughts? Does it seem like the mind is more subdued than at the beginning of practice? Are you feeling any emotions at all? Are you feeling calm and clear, just kind of aware? How does your energy feel right now? How connected do you feel, not only to yourself, but to the world around you? And slowly bring your palms together in front of your heart. Take a moment in gratitude for water. You are predominantly water. You need water to survive. You are water. And water reminds us to surrender to the flow. Gratitude for that lesson and reminder. Take one more huge deep breath in through your nose. Big exhale through the mouth. We bring our palms together at our foreheads, and it just reminds us to be an observer, to be present. We bring our palms together in front of our mouth. This reminds us to speak our truth. We bring our palms together in front of our heart. Reminds us to keep our hearts open. That love is also energy, and energy flows like a river, and that we want it to all flow freely both ways. Take one more deep breath in. Huge sigh. Thank you for joining me this morning. Always my honor. Namaste.